Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta from Markets to Policy from Manila to the world. We cut through the noise so you can navigate, adapt, and lead. This is Business 360. Slower growth and softer confidence pushed the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas to cut its benchmark rate again, now down to 4.25%. What does that signal for consumer spending, mobility, and energy costs? We break down where fuel prices and demand could be headed next with Seaoil Retail President and Chief Financial Officer Mark Yu, former president of the Chartered Financial Analyst Society of the Philippines. And global tech giants pledge billions in new investments in India at the AI Impact Summit as two industry rivals share a tense moment on the world stage. As expected, another rate cut. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas trims interest rates by 25 basis points as it moves to support an economy that has lost some momentum after slower than expected GDP growth. The move brings the benchmark policy rate to 4.25%. It's the central bank's first policy decision of the year and the sixth straight rate cut, bringing total easing to about 225 basis points. BSP Governor Eli Remolona Jr. says that the inflation outlook remains manageable, although forecasts point to a slight uptick this year, driven by supply-side pressures.
This is due largely to supply-side factors. While these factors are largely temporary, they will require continued vigilance with regard to possible spillover effects.
The central bank still expects inflation to return close to its 3% target by 2027.
Growth has been softer than expected. Investment slowed. We attribute this to a lack of confidence. Our decision today may actually help to restore confidence, boosting investment and consumption. The pace of economic recovery will depend on how quickly confidence returns.
Are Filipinos cutting back or still spending? Fuel demand remains one of the clearest real-time reads on the economy, from daily commutes and delivery costs to business activity and household budgets. What happens at the pump often reveals how confident or how cautious consumers and businesses really are. Joining us now is Mark Yu, the President for Retail Business and Chief Financial Officer of Seaoil Philippines. He's also a former president of the Chartered Financial Analyst Society of the Philippines. Hi, Mark. Thank you for being here with us.
Good morning, Mikey.
Okay, let's start on the ground. Oil is directly tied to GDP. After 2 quarters in 2025 of successive underwhelming GDP growth at 3% and 4% respectively in the last 2 quarters, how are motorists behaving in this kind of economic environment across your retail network of 800 stores?
I mean, motorists are always cost conscious. So for them, always looking for the best price. And as income slows down, they are also more conscious in terms of how much you're spending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, the big picture here is that oil prices have been relatively low overseas. They peaked at around $139 per barrel in 2022, but now they're hovering close to the $70 to $80 range. That's roughly a 40 to 50% drop. What does this tell you about where we are now, Mark?
Well, there's a lot of room. I mean, coming from, in peso terms, seen as high as 90 pesos per liter to where we are now, around 50. So in that sense, we've been able to use that savings to pump it into other areas of our lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, I think, it's great for the economy, actually.
Yeah. Speaking of the economy, the fuel industry grew 4% in 2025. What does this tell you about the health of the Filipino consumer and our economic trajectory? Because, you know, oil is tied to GDP.
Yeah, I think they can travel more, given where oil prices are right now, to help boost our domestic economy. I think tourism is one of the things that we really need to focus on. And we've seen growth actually in Cebu and Mindanao in particular, where there's a lot of investments happening.
Yeah. People that buy oil, they're always price conscious. Compared to a year ago, are you seeing clearer signs of belt tightening? How is behavior changing in 2026, if at all?
It's fairly flat. Actually, oil prices have gone down compared to 2024. I mean, since 2022, as you mentioned, right? Peak oil prices. So demand has gone up. Having said that, I mean, it's not just tied to oil prices, but overall health. And because of the overall slowdown in GDP, we're still seeing some tightening.
Yeah, because of that slowdown we saw in GDP, the BSP's easing cycle continues. Yesterday, they cut policy rates to 4.25%. Wearing your CFA hat, Mark, what does this tell you about domestic demand and economic momentum?
So I think interest rate cuts always help boost the economy. For every 1% cut in interest rates, you can see savings of about 250 to 300 billion pesos. And that's equivalent to about 1 to 1.1% of our GDP. So for every 25 bips rate cut, that you should see more money in the pocket of businesses as well as consumers. That should translate to higher GDP growth.
Yeah, additional, it's going to give us additional, it's going to give the government and consumers additional money to pour into the economy. Now, where could that bring our GDP? I mean, we've had these successive rate cuts. Where might, expectations from the market are for one more rate cut. So 25 bips rate cuts for 2026.
Yeah.
By how much could that lift GDP from where we are now?
I mean, from where we are, coming from December at 3, it's still far from where we were at around 6%. 25 bip rate cut will translate to about 0.25% growth in GDP. So there's still a significant gap that we need to recover. But there are spillover effects. It's about momentum. And what you're really hoping is that you stimulate and that you regain confidence for more spending.
Yeah, well, rate cuts alone won't bring us to the 6% plus growth that we want to see. What do we need to see to get us to those levels?
We need to address corruption. We need to pour more into infrastructure. These types of spending have multiplier effects. Promotes trade, which then helps bring more consumers around the country, more confidence in investing in real estate. So it really starts with improving our governance.
Speaking of governance and institutions, Mark, I wanted to bring to fore a recent development. Just the other day, in the United Kingdom, Prince Andrew, the brother of King Charles, became the first senior British royal in modern history to be arrested and questioned over his links to Jeffrey Epstein. As a business leader, how do you think this makes our own justice system look?
As a business leader, I mean, our justice system here needs a lot of improvement. They say justice delayed is justice not served. But I think we have bigger problems to solve. I mean, we need to lower prices for our consumers. We need to increase income. And I think that's where we should be focusing on.
It was still on the next election cycle. Vice President Sara Duterte has announced her presidential bid in 2028. How is the fuel retail and the broader financial community reacting to this development?
For us, independent of who's running or who will be president, what we're looking for is predictability and consistency, sustainability in the policies. One ideal scenario would be actually for our legislators to come up with a change in terms of how we elect our president and vice president. It would be great if we can have both of them on the same ticket. I think it's too disruptive to our economy when you have president and vice president belonging to two different parties, and we spend time having to address the political ramifications of that instead of having both the president and the vice president coming from the same group where we can move in one direction. Okay, interesting. Okay, on another front, the BSP says growth will depend heavily on confidence. For top entrepreneurs like yourself, what's it going to take to restore confidence? I go back to that word, predictability, consistency. I think it's great that all of these, I guess, corruption issues are being uncovered. We do want to see accountability in that regard. And moving forward in terms of the budget and how it's being allocated and spent, more transparency. And going to the true state of the economy, from your vantage point inside the fuel retail industry, how healthy does the
Filipino economy look and feel today?
In terms of feeling, I mean, it does feel slower, right? I talked to my other friends in the retail industry, and they're feeling that slowdown in growth. What we don't want to happen is that it spirals, because it's all about confidence. And if people are not confident, I'm not going to spend. If they're not going to spend, it has spillover effects. So we need to restore that confidence in our economy in order to bring us back to that 6 to 7% level.
Yeah, okay. Another thing that affects us, the peso. The peso's been hovering at the 59 to the 60 to the dollar range. How much does currency still drive pump prices? I mean, it must be a lot, because we're such a big oil importer.
Yeah.
90% of our needs we import from the global market. So with prices like these, when depreciation, how much does depreciation hurt us?
For every 1 peso depreciation, it translates to an increase in oil prices or pump prices by about 50 cents per liter. So it's directly correlated, and definitely, I mean, it's good for remittances, but harder for local prices.
Harder for local prices. That's right. In the Philippines, a big portion of our fuel prices are tied to taxes. And I'm trying to understand how we can bring fuel prices in the country meaningfully lower. What do we need from the government, especially given that your net profit margin, the net profit margin of an oil company, is just 1%.
That's right.
What does the government need to do so that we can meaningfully bring fuel prices lower?
I think the government has actually partially responded to our request to reduce creditable withholding tax from 1% lower, so they reduced it from 1 to 0.5%. Now, as you mentioned, oil companies' net profit margin is only 1%, when with a tax rate of 25%, you're only able to use 0.25% of that creditable withholding tax. So we'd like to see that reduced further, which will translate into lower interest expense, because you're carrying that creditable withholding tax in your books, which will translate to lower pump prices.
Immediately, how immediate would the effects be?
Oh, I mean, if they change the rate lower, we can affect that in the pump immediately.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, another thing I wanted to talk to you about. EVs. In China, about 60% of new cars sold are now electric. In the Philippines, we've got single-digit growth there. We're at 7%. With EV penetration still in the single digits here, are we even close to a point where it's going to affect fuel demand, or not so?
So, I mean, 6-7% looks very far from 60. But if we look at where China was in the year 2020,
it wasn't so long ago where China was at single-digit levels.
Yes, so that's like just 5 years ago. However, in our case, it's not just the EV that will create sort of that disruption. We really need to augment that with infrastructure, more specifically charging stations. So in China, they've been more deliberate in rolling out charging stations, and that's going to be key for our growth as well.
Okay, all right. And, everything going on in the Philippines, what gives you hope about our economy? As a fuel retailer and wearing your CFA hat, what gives you hope?
I mean, the Philippines always benefits from a very big population, and we're young. So very low base. And with that, we do tweaks here and there, and it's easy to actually jumpstart given the low base that we have.
All right, Mark Yu, President for Retail Business and CFO of Sea Oil Philippines, thank you so much for being here with us this morning.
Thank you as well.
We're taking a quick break. Coming up, the flood control probe shifts focus to asset recovery, targeting 2 former officials. Keep it here on Business 360. Welcome back. A high-stakes crackdown on illegal cigarettes is intensifying as authorities move against smuggling networks that cost the government billions in lost tax revenue. Department of the Interior and Local Government Secretary John Vic Remulla now alleges he was offered a bribe as enforcement operations against illicit trade gain momentum. On BNC's agenda, he said he was offered a 50-50 profit share from remaining illegal cigarette inventory in exchange for stopping the government's crackdown on smuggling and illicit sales.
Ang alok nila half and half. Hindi ganito yan eh. May natitira pa silang inventory. Kung value do 500 million, 250 sa amin, 250 sa kanila.
Remulla further alleges that 2 congressmen from Central Luzon are behind the operations, as authorities continue building their case and tracing financial flows.
It's enough that you've crippled their operations. Now we're going after the money. We're following the money kung saan nanggaling.
The Independent Commission on Infrastructure is now moving to trace and possibly recover assets linked to the flood control controversy. The commission says it is examining the assets of former House Speaker Martin Romualdez and former Department of Public Works and Highways Secretary Manuel Bonoan over their alleged links to the case. The chairman of the ICI Technical Working Group for Asset Recovery says the commission is reviewing art collections and other high-value assets believed to be connected to those under investigation. The commission is also seeking assistance from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas to review possible cryptocurrency holdings.
From what I heard and understand, I think we're getting along faster than we previously have because of the systems that are in place, and we have agencies that would report the latest discoveries when it comes to the assets of personalities and companies involved.
Meanwhile, Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro says President Ferdinand Marcos is reviewing the Commission's accomplishment report on the ongoing probe. Now, the push to curb political dynasties is back in the spotlight as the Senate holds its final public consultation on a proposed anti-political dynasty law. Lawmakers gathered in Cagayan de Oro for the last leg of consultations as senators continue to push their respective versions of the measure aimed at limiting family dominance in politics. Members of the youth sector, civil society groups, and educators took part in the discussions, expressing support for reforms that could expand political participation and broaden leadership opportunities. Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan, who attended the consultation, is advancing a version of the bill that would ban political dynasties up to the second degree of consanguinity.
The fact that we are facing and continue to face, and it remains unresolved, the largest corruption scandal in the history of the Republic, this too is a wake-up call for the bureaucracy as well as the governed, that's you, the governors and the governed, na hindi na dapat pwede yung dating gawin.
Business leaders in Cagayan de Oro also voiced support for the proposal, saying political dynasties can limit competition and leadership renewal, which may ultimately affect economic performance and local development.
A lot of us Filipinos have the capacity, have the mental power to do what is good for our country.
Early political positioning for 2028 is beginning to take shape following Vice President Sara Duterte's announcement of her presidential bid. Names are already emerging as possible running mates. Senator Amy Marcos is among those being mentioned, with Senator Robin Padilla publicly pushing a possible Sara-Amy tandem. Comments from attorney Barry Gutierrez have also sparked talk of a potential team-up with Senator Bam Aquino. Speculation intensified after Aquino made remarks about addressing extrajudicial killing cases linked to the Duterte administration, drawing responses from both allies and members of the opposition. Other names being floated from the Senate include Robin Padilla, Sherwin Gatchalian, Rafi Tulfo, Erwin Tulfo, and Rodante Marcoleta. Up next, at India's AI Impact Summit, the founders of ChatGPT and Anthropic share an awkward moment on stage while one of the world's biggest tech titans is noticeably absent. That story and more when Business 360 returns. Welcome back. With countries racing to lead in artificial intelligence, the AI Impact Summit in India is drawing global attention from governments, investors, and the world's biggest tech firms. Tech companies have already pledged hundreds of billions of dollars in AI investments. Microsoft alone says it plans to invest about $50 billion by the end of the decade to expand AI initiatives across the global south. India's Prime Minister is positioning the country as a global hub for affordable and secure artificial intelligence, as some of the world's largest AI firms gather for the high-profile event.
If we are right, by the end of 2028, more of the world's intellectual capacity could reside inside of data centers than outside of them. This is an extraordinary statement to make. And of course, we could be wrong. But I think it really bears serious consideration. A superintelligence, at some point on its development curve, would be capable of doing a better job being the CEO of a major company than any executive, certainly me, or doing better research than our best scientists.
My fundamental view is that AI has been on an exponential for the last 10 years, and that we are now well advanced on that curve, and there are only a small number of years for AI models surpassing the cognitive capabilities of most humans for most things.
But the summit has also seen a series of bumps and controversies. The founders of ChatGPT and Anthropic drew attention after refusing to link arms during a group photo with fellow tech leaders. Delegates also reported overcrowding, long queues, and logistical disruptions at the venue, raising questions about execution at a gathering designed to showcase India's growing AI ambitions. Meanwhile, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates withdrew from the summit hours before his scheduled Thursday keynote amid renewed scrutiny over his past association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the United States is stepping up its diplomatic push in the Middle East, with billions now being pledged for the rebuilding of Gaza. U.S. President Donald Trump says several nations have committed a total of $7 billion to a proposed Gaza reconstruction fund. The fund is intended to support rebuilding efforts in the enclave once Hamas disarms and security conditions stabilize. But major challenges remain, including the withdrawal of Israeli troops, the flow of humanitarian aid, and the establishment of long-term security arrangements. The announcement comes as Trump continues to position himself as a peacemaker in the region, even as the United States warns of possible military action against Iran if it refuses to abandon its nuclear program.
They've had some very interesting meetings having to do with, as you know, Iran is a hot spot right now, and they're meeting, and they have a good relationship with the representatives of Iran, and, you know, good talks are being had. It's proven to be, over the years, not easy to make a meaningful deal with Iran. We have to make a meaningful deal. Otherwise, bad things happen. But we have to make a meaningful deal. But they have a great relationship with the representatives of Iran.
Let's take a look at how global financial markets performed overnight. Wall Street ended lower with losses in private equity companies and weakness in Nvidia and Apple, while earnings-driven gains in industrials limit losses.
There's some very interesting dynamics really impacting the market today. You have some more geopolitical tension between us and Iran. You're seeing oil prices rally. You also saw Occidental come out with really good earnings. So we've seen commodity prices coming up. And then Walmart reported earnings today. Walmart was really interesting for a variety of reasons. One, they took down their forecast moving forward. They are seeing pressure with their lower end consumer. But I think one of the more interesting things that's going on is they did see their digital sales up significantly.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average ended lower by 0.5%, the S&P 500 down by 0.3%, and the Nasdaq lower by 0.3%. Over in Europe, markets also fell. The UK's FTSE 100 down by 0.6%, Germany's DAX lower by 0.9%, and France's CAC 40 in the red by 0.4%. Taking a look at our market, the Philippine Stock Exchange, as of 10:19 this morning, the main gauge is flat with a negative bias at 64.07. Volume is at 155 million shares, valued at 853 million pesos. Market breadth almost neck and neck, with 64 advancers, 65 decliners, and 60 stocks unchanged. Now, taking a look at Asian markets. Take a look at Asian markets again. The Nikkei 225 in the red by 1.3%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index down by 1.1%. Shanghai's Composite down by 1.3%. And Singapore's Straits Times Index flat with an upward bias. In other news, defense ties between the Philippines and Canada are deepening, with both countries now in active talks on military intelligence sharing agreements. Canadian ambassador to the Philippines, David Hartman, says negotiations are underway for a General Security of Information Agreement, or GSOIA, which would allow the two nations to exchange classified military information more freely. The proposed deal follows the signing of a Status of Visiting Forces agreement last year, a key step in expanding military cooperation between Manila and Ottawa. Officials say that the intelligence sharing pact would enable deeper security coordination, including access for security-cleared suppliers to bid on sensitive defense projects in both countries. Under its Indo-Pacific strategy, Canada has identified the Philippines as a key partner in maintaining regional stability, which it says is critical to its economic and security interests. Canada also plans to deploy more than 600 personnel and assets to this year's Balikatan exercises, making it one of the largest participants. Now, the Philippines and Japan are moving to deepen economic ties as both sides signal a stronger cooperation across key growth industries. The Presidential Communications Office says Japanese officials paid a courtesy call on President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in Malacanang ahead of the 42nd joint meeting of their key economic committees. Talks focused on expanding trade, investment, infrastructure, human resource development, and tourism, alongside the Philippines' economic reforms and investment pipeline. Both sides also cited opportunities in semiconductors, electronics, automotive, aerospace, and renewable energy sectors seen as critical to the country's industrial and export strategy. Officials say Manila and Tokyo remain in close coordination to expand trade flows, attract more investments, and deepen business partnerships. Megaworld Corporation, one of the country's largest property developers, is expanding its retail footprint with a 10 billion peso investment in new malls and commercial projects. The company says that the projects will add more than 150,000 square meters of gross floor area to its portfolio, with construction rolling out through next year. New developments are planned in San Fernando, Pampanga, Marilao and Bocaue, Bulacan, General Trias, Cavite, and Bacolod City. The expansion is part of Megaworld's 65 billion peso capital expenditure program for the year, which covers residential, office, hospitality, and retail projects across Metro Manila and several provincial hubs. Megaworld currently has more than 500,000 square meters of gross leasable area in its retail portfolio and is targeting 1 million square meters by 2030. The company also said it plans to inject selected mall assets into its real estate investment trust, MREIT Incorporated, as part of its portfolio expansion strategy. On another front, SM Prime Holdings is expanding in Cebu as companies increasingly look beyond Metro Manila for lower costs and less congestion. The property giant is developing a 60,000 square meter office project in SM City Cebu Towers, with completion targeted by the fourth quarter of 2026. The project, located in the North Reclamation area, will form part of a mixed-use complex that includes retail spaces and a national university campus. Data from Lead Shoe Property Consultants shows Cebu continues to lead the country's provincial office market, accounting for about 150,000 square meters, or 55% of total provincial office take-up in 2025. The expansion highlights a broader shift as firms seek cost-efficient locations outside the capital while tapping regional talent pools. Now, Metrobank reports a record performance for 2025, posting an all-time high net income of nearly 50 billion pesos, driven by strong growth in high-margin consumer loans. The bank also declares a 5 peso per share cash dividend, including a special 2 peso payout to shareholders. Net interest income expands, trading gains surge, and operating costs remain manageable, helping keep the bank's efficiency ratios in check. Metrobank says its non-performing loan ratio remains low, while total assets approach 4 trillion pesos, positioning the lender to support credit demand and broader economic activity. In other news, Nestle, the world's largest food and beverage company, is betting on a turnaround as new leadership moves to revive growth. The Swiss food giant says sales growth is expected to accelerate in 2026, with organic revenue projected to rise between 3 and 4%. That would outpace last year's 3.5% expansion and come in above analyst forecasts. The outlook comes as new chief executive Philippe Navratil pushes a major restructuring plan just months after taking the top job. Navratil has announced plans to cut about 16,000 jobs globally, or about 6% of its workforce, as the company reorganizes around 4 core divisions: pet care, coffee, nutrition, and food and snacking. The company is also in advanced talks to sell its remaining ice cream business to its Foneri joint venture as it streamlines operations and cuts costs. Nestle has faced weak demand, high costs, and a major global product recall, with investors now watching whether new management can deliver a sustained turnaround. Up next in sports, Alex Ayala's Dubai run comes to an end against world number 4 Coco Gauff, but the rising star is already looking ahead to her next big test. Stay with us. Business 360 will be back. Welcome back. Globe Telecom is stepping up its connectivity expansion as demand for faster and more reliable digital infrastructure continues to grow across the country. The telco announces a partnership with Starlink, the satellite internet service operated by SpaceX, and reports successful direct-to-cell testing in parts of Rizal and Bataan, aimed at expanding coverage in hard-to-reach areas. Globe also unveils new offerings, including its G Fiber Plus G plan and other connectivity solutions, as it looks to strengthen its broadband and mobile ecosystem amid intensifying digital demand. The company says these moves are part of its broader push to improve network access, support digital services, and expand connectivity nationwide. Alex Ayala's impressive Dubai campaign comes to a close after falling to world number 4 Coco Gauff in the quarterfinals. Gauff defeated the Filipina tennis standout early Friday, Manila time, to advance to the semifinals of the WTA 1000 Dubai Tennis Championships. Ayala scored 1 break and trimmed the deficit to 4-2 in the second set, but Gauff held firm and sealed the match, marking their first singles meeting since partnering in doubles at last year's Italian Open. Ayala wraps up her Middle East swing with back-to-back quarterfinal finishes and is next set to compete at the BNP Paribas Open in California. Still in sports news, boxing icon and 8-division world champion Manny Pacquiao is heading back to Las Vegas, confirming a return to the ring on April 18. The 47. We're taking a quick break. More stories when we return. Welcome back. Global music star Bad Bunny is expanding his reach beyond music, this time taking on a leading role on the big screen. The Puerto Rican artist, who ranked 5th in the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, or IFPI, global charts, will star in the film Puerto Rico, where he's set to play revolutionary figure Jose Maldonado Roman, known as Águila Blanca. The project will be directed by fellow Grammy winner Residente, who says bringing the story to life has been a childhood dream. The film marks the latest milestone in a banner year for Bad Bunny, following 3 Grammy wins and a record-breaking Super Bowl halftime performance. The move also highlights how global music stars are leveraging their brands into film and streaming, turning cultural influence into new revenue streams and cross-platform business expansion. Now, pop superstar Taylor Swift hits another record, named 2025's biggest global selling artist by the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry. The honor marks her 4th straight win and 6th overall, a dominance that matches the combined total of all other artists over the past decade. Her latest album, The Life of a Showgirl, along with a docuseries on her record-breaking Eras tour, helped turbocharge global sales and streaming numbers. The milestone also underscores how global superstars continue to drive billions in music sales, streaming revenue, tourism, and brand partnerships, turning cultural moments into major economic impact. Here at home, Manila came alive as Grammy-nominated singer Josh Groban treated fans to a night of powerful ballads and star-studded collaborations as major international concerts continue to highlight the Philippines' role as a key stop in the global live entertainment and events economy. Chalondok Del Rosario takes us inside the highlights of the GEMS World Tour 2026.
Tonight, Manila welcomes back Josh Groban for his GEMS World Tour 2026. And it's even more meaningful because his special guests for tonight are no other than Asia's songbird, Regine Velasquez, as well as our very own concert king, Martin Rivera. It's still the month of love this February, so come and join us as we fall in love with his songs all over again. Opened with the heartfelt You Are Loved, followed by the whimsical Pure Imagination, transporting the audience into a world of emotion and imagination. Then, at the piano, he performed Gratitude, each note resonating with the crowd. The music continued with fan favorites like February Song and Angels, before a special tribute to one of his inspirations with Celine Dion's Just Walk Away. Each song carried its own magic, and every note drew cheers and applause. The night became even more special with local stars. Julie Ann San Jose performed Both Sides Now, calling the moment a dream come true. Then OPM icon Martin Rivera delivered a touching rendition of My Love Will Always Be With You. The energy soared as Josh and Martin teamed up for a powerful duet of What I Did for Love, blending their voices in a perfect harmony that thrilled the audience. Closing the night, Regine Velasquez took the stage with On the Wings of Love, followed by a breathtaking duet with Josh on I Ask of You, a moment fans won't forget. From the first note to the final bow, it was more than a concert. It was a celebration of music, talent, and collaboration. Josh Groban brought passion, emotion, and unforgettable performances to the stage. This is Chalon Talk for the...
And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Thank you for joining us, and keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.